Just start waking up and saying thank you. Like, thank you for another day, for being alive. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't wake up. So I did that. And he said it takes a while for it to become a habit. And it did. But I stuck it out. And then eventually it turned into thank you, God. And I don't know where that came from. It just started to shift.
What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others.
In case you missed it,
My mother really exemplified what it means to be a selfless provider. And she demonstrated that hard work is not just about what we do, but how we do it, with love, care, and a steadfast commitment to those we serve. She showed me that true strength lies in giving your all day in and day out, even when it's difficult. And her unwavering dedication to her family is something I carry with me in everything I do.
available everywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Welcome back, Impact Heroes. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to our latest iSpark Change social impact hero, and he is a great one indeed. Our guest today is a testament to resilience and self-discovery. He has a deep desire to connect with others and offers comfort and understanding to those feeling alone on their journeys. He wants to help you build confidence if you're starting over because he knows that adversity and struggle can lead to the resilience and self-discovery that is so important for a lot of us. His passion lies in aiding others, particularly in helping them find their voice through podcasting, fostering empathy and connection among individuals. He embodies resilience, empathy, and the power of forging genuine connections. He has a beautiful way of understanding and connecting with others and will make you feel heard. He's an all-around great guy, and he's fueled by physical and mental strength, mental awareness, spirituality, and faith. Please welcome the authentic, passionate, and empathetic host of Life's Checkmark podcast, John Emery. John, welcome to the iSpark Change podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This is going to be awesome.
Yes, it is. I totally agree. Well, you and I were having some fun off air, sharing a funny story, but we were connected by someone because she felt that you are someone that fits what we talk about, that fits our definition of a social impact hero. And we see you as someone that's spreading positive change, whose actions have a positive impact on humanity that we call a social impact hero. So the first question I have for you and all our guests here on the podcast, John, is we see you as a hero. Do you see yourself as a hero?
Yes, and it took time to consider myself as a hero, as you would put it. I feel like I'm doing it as a human in a way, and it's just something I'm passionate and love to do. It's how it showed up to me is totally been a journey of itself to get to where I am today. But yes, I would say if you want to call me a hero, I'll put my hand up as a hero.
Good. Well, I'm glad you'll accept that. And I will want to learn how you said, that now you can accept that and maybe not always. So share with our audience. Obviously you didn't get to today overnight, right? That there was a lot of that resilience and adversity and things that we talked about. So share how you got to become a hero, essentially, how you got on the path that you're on today.
Sure. So I'll start off with I got a job when I was 19, and I stayed in work the same place. I worked at the same place for 20 years, worked my way up a little bit, and they decided to close after 20 years at my facility. Not due to COVID, it was around COVID times. They just said we were not performing. They had another plant in the US, so they decided to shift everything down that way. So I wound up being one of the last three people leaving that facility because I was in the shipping receiving area. I had to make sure everything went out the door, machines, whatever we had moved out. We swept the floors, and it was just nerve wracking to be one of those last few to walk out the door, where it went from maybe 80 some people that worked there, and jobs were lost. So for me, I wanted a shift, and God, universe, or whatever decided here's my window of opportunity to find something new. I wound up jumping into life insurance, which I never did. So I didn't have that steady income. This was all new to me, trying to do commission, and I was trying to learn things. So I was trying to reach out to entrepreneurs, share what I had to offer. I had a great time learning the information I could share, and I started making YouTube stuff. Uh, and I eventually wound up doing 10 Facebook Lives where I was interviewing entrepreneurs. I had a good time doing it. And, I had to drop it off because within that same year of me losing my job, there was stuff going on at home. And, I was married for almost 15 years. Was with the same one woman for 21 years. And, I have two great kids. But the word divorce came up that May of the following year. So within the same year, I lost the job and I was heading down the divorce path. So I wound up getting another full-time job, thinking that I, needed that to kind of make everything work out. It was not that. And so it took a little, there's other things on that journey there afterwards to where it got me to today. I can definitely dive into any area you want to talk about, but it's eventually led me into podcasting. It led me into talking to all these amazing people, guests that had, that came on and shared their journey in life. And my rock bottom is not everybody's rock bottom. So, I was given mine because some reason God, universe, thought and knew that I could pass through it. Right. And, everybody else has maybe something I would think, geez, I don't know if I could do that. You were in jail, you were molested, all that stuff that, you don't want to hear about, but people make it through and they become so much better on the other side to help others. So that's a short, quick version of how I got to where I got.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing it. And yeah, you're right. Is that I mean, Scripture says, and I believe too, that God gives us what we can handle, and we'll come out stronger on the other side. And so you obviously have done that, at this point, and you're enjoying what you're doing with podcasting and everything. So obviously, there are a lot of different directions that things could have gone in everything that was going on, right? With losing the job, with with getting divorced and everything. So what was when you say hit rock bottom, how did that, obviously those are challenging things enough, right? The job and the divorce. What would you say was the moment where you're like, okay, where you made the conscious choice and said, okay, I need to start heading back up from where I am right now?
That's an awesome question. Yeah, I like that because it wasn't, it progressed. It took time. So I share this where I met some great men when I was starting to go through stuff, trying to figure out what was going on with my wife at the time, like doing different things. I was just going crazy. I mean, I lost 20 pounds, couldn't sleep. And, connecting with these guys in this group I found allowed me to accept the fact when the word divorce came up, I was okay. You know what I mean? Like she mentioned it to me, I didn't go to her, but I was like, okay, I'm done. And then somewhere, I don't know if there's a timeline or anything like that, but I was able to just like gather myself and, say, I can figure this out, whatever is going to come my way. And I slowly worked on being mentally fit and more emotionally, right? That was my weakness at the time. And, after the word divorce came up, I felt relief. It's weird, right? And,
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for it, but it came up and I'm like, okay, now whatever was happening is still going to continue, but I'm okay with it. And, she can do whatever she wants to do. And I'm just going to try to figure things out. So, yeah, so for me, it was started a morning routine. I started to listen to more positive podcasts, books, and all that stuff. And I was already doing some of that prior to everything, but I started to dive in a little deeper in my mindset and shift that first. That eventually allowed me to go into the other areas of life I wanted to work on, which was fitness and then relationships and spirituality too. But yeah, it somewhere right there, it just allowed me to shift a little bit, as you would say, it wasn't overnight. You know what I mean? It took some time. For me, she wound up staying with me in the same house for maybe 6 months, whatever, till she moved out. So there was still like that, weird feeling, but I was still able to move on. It was, um, yeah, that's the beginning of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. The biggest thing that stands out for me in what you're sharing, John, is the power of having support, the power of having support from others. And it's something that we've talked about on this show many, many times in terms of support that comes from, peers or mentors or coaches or, and it comes in many different varieties. So in your case, I guess it came in a men's group. So talk a little bit about how that, obviously that support affected you positively, right? You started uh, morning routine, mental fitness, physical fitness, different things like that. Was that something that you always had, or something that was new in that time where you said, okay, I need to seek out some support? Or was it something that you was always a part of your life and it just took a bigger role because of what was going on?
As far as the men's group
Yes, as
goes,
far as I mentioned,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So prior, it was January of the year after I lost my job. That's when things were kind of shaky at home, and I was listening to a podcast, of course, and it connected me with some men in a group, and that allowed me to go reach out to these guys to experience what they experienced or they are going through as well, and we could just discuss things. And they were able to share, yeah, hey, look, I think you're going down this road. Be prepared. I mean, even though I didn't want to hear it, they were able to tell you pretty much, straight up. And these are guys I never seen. I never shook hands with them. Nothing. Uh, but that allowed me to, when that word divorce came up, it allowed me to be more free, more open. As I stopped, put myself down, as a man and thinking that everything's my fault. Uh, I Man, it was a blessing in disguise because I don't know if you know, but like 10 men kill themselves every day because of divorce.
Wow.
And I'm glad I'm not one of them. And I'm glad that these other guys were out there to try to prevent that too, in a sense. And, and me speaking about this too, like, I don't want anybody to go down that road either. And it's tough. Like, I'm still struggling. I'm struggling financially. So, I mean, it's still, things still trickle down. It's not over or everything
Yeah.
said sometimes. Uh, but yeah, that men's group, it came up. I listened to the podcast maybe 2 years prior to that because I was interested in being a better father, and that's part of their thing too. It wasn't just divorce; it was just men growing in all different areas of life, and it just happened to spark up again that around the right time, I think. And I took the action to join this group, and it was a monthly fee for a little while, and I met maybe 4 or 5 guys. And if I had something wrong, I called one up. If they didn't answer, another one I would call. And it wasn't like they're right there waiting for you. I got your back, but it it felt like it.
Hmm.
To this day, I'm in contact with 2 of them, and I want to say there was 3 of them that really stuck out to me. And you know, if I didn't have that, I don't know what it would be like. I probably would have been just rolling around my head for a very long time. And I
Yeah.
don't have I didn't then either have like the men friends around me socially in my environment here at home. So
Hmm.
it's a blessing. Even just us talking virtually is it's amazing, and it's something that we should all hold value to because we didn't have this a long time ago.
Yeah, there is a lot of value in it, whether it's virtual even or in person. It's something I've definitely had that. That's been a blessing in my life for the past 4 years as well, especially with, I've been on hundreds, if not thousands at this point of Zoom calls and with different people and met people from all over the world and been, touched, connected, affected in so many ways from every single one of them, like yourself included in different ways. And that's added to my growth as an individual. And I think a lot of people miss that. That's why I wanted to really discuss it a little more, because I think what happens, and this was the case for me in the past, and is that a lot of people feel that they're all alone in whatever their situation is, right? That they're all alone, especially something like a divorce. I mean, I remember when my parents got divorced, I was 13, and my dad, you know, I mean, he did a really good job of hiding things, but I know that he had really no one for support. Like he didn't talk to anyone. He wasn't a real social guy or anything like that. Like he didn't have a big group of friends. He had some coworkers and his family was everything to him. So like, yeah, his kids and so not having that, I know for a lot of people, like you shared that statistic, for a lot of people, not having that, that's becomes, too burdensome to carry along. And, we're not meant to be, that's why like the pandemic was so hard, because we're not meant to be, we're a social species. We're meant to be around others and have, social interaction and everything. And to, especially when you're going through something challenging. And so it's great that you had that, and it did provide a lot of support for yourself, and still you get support from yourself. And I'm gonna guess, and tell me if this is true, John. I'm gonna guess that that even by virtue of you doing the podcast, right, which you started your podcast, Life's Checkmark, that in doing that, having those interviews, having that conversation, that you get so much out of it in doing the podcast.
Oh, absolutely. And I was just on one yesterday, and I was telling her, you're like taking all this energy in from all these guests, and you're like taking you're growing yourself so much more than these guests that are coming on and sharing their journey, right? Because you're absorbing so much, and so I just went over like 100 episodes, and so that could be like 100 people that I never would have met before,
Hmm.
all over the world, just like you said, from all different backgrounds. And if you just take a few little pieces here and there, and then, you know, yeah, you can filter out what you want, what you don't want, but, keep your eyes open, your ears open. And so, yeah, does this work for me? Can that fit into my routine? Is this something I should add, or should I delete something, take it out, make a shift that way? Like, for example, breath work has been a big one coming my way, and it's nothing I really want to jump into, but it makes sense to me. So, if I needed to, I could try to use something like that, or somebody else listening could probably use something like that. But yeah, as far as podcasting goes, with the relationships, I'm one where I would do something like this with you for 20 minutes before we even schedule an episode, just so we get to know each other and build that relationship. And
Hmm.
hey, I know what Rick's looking for. I know so and so. You can connect, and that's before we even have an episode. And that's the thing I like to do. Um, yeah, it's just it's really fun to see these people light up after they've gone through so much stuff, and they can share their experience to others, and hopefully it reaches that one person that might have gone through a divorce like I did, and they can go, okay, this guy can do it, I can do it too. Whatever it
Yeah.
is. And the relationships, your communication, everything grows so much through a podcast.
Yep. Yeah, we talk about here, which we'll get to a little bit in a few minutes, about a spark moment. But it's one of those things where your actions, the conversation, has a ripple effect that you never know how far and wide it goes, right? You never know whose ears are going to hear that podcast or see it on YouTube, and how they're going to be affected. what effect would it have on them, just like the one did on you, right? I mean, when the whoever's podcast that was, when they first started talking about that, they didn't know that years later it would impact you in the way that did, and lead to this chain of events within your life. And that's the beauty of something like that will live on long past us is that it's still going to be around to have that positive impact.
Right.
So in our in the social impact hero, we define that hero as an acronym, as honoring your purpose, engaging your audience in your mission, rippling your message to spread positive change, and then opening your heart to the world. You're obviously doing a lot of those things by the just in our conversation here. So share with our audience, what have been a few things? So obviously the men's group had helped, right? And then you said that you've done some things on your own. So what have been some other things that have really helped you in that journey that you're now relating to others, and you're now, trying to pass it on, so to speak?
Yeah. So, like I said in the beginning a little bit there, I did mention morning routine. So, and that was like, I did one thing and then I added maybe 4 or 5 things on top of it. And it was just slowly progressed. And, now I take my time. So, I'll get up early, and, used to be, I was rushing around trying to hurry up and get out the door, because I had kids and everything else like that. And, I wanted to sleep in or whatever at the time. But now I get up early, I take my time doing my morning routine, I run through it, and then I'm off to work. I do what I got to do. So that was one step. And, then it came to where I started working myself physically. Like I got stuff in the basement. Uh, it's funny how I got it. Where I previously worked, somebody was moving, they didn't know what to do with their gym equipment. I took it, never used it until after divorce. And now, I hit it. I wound up hiring a fitness trainer to kind of help me. So, things changed over 6 months working with them. And that's another thing, is I wound up taking on coaches and consultants and stuff that I've never would have done before in working in different areas of my life. Uh, One of the things with the men's group area, I did take one on as a coach, in a sense, where I did like a 4-week program that helped me before even the word divorce came up, not knowing it was, but that helped me become more masculine, is how it was set up to be. It wasn't falling apart towards the end of it. I was getting stronger. And then, I never really went to church. I started to about a year and a half ago. Funny thing is, I listened to another podcast, and somewhat, walking down the sidewalk, whatever, the guy said something like, just start waking up and saying thank you. Like, thank you for another day. Like, for being alive. A lot of people don't wake up. So I did that. And he said it takes a while for it to become a habit. And it did, but I stuck it out. And then eventually it turned into thank you, God. And I don't know where that came from. It just started to shift. So I reached out to a friend of mine that's close. He's like, well, maybe you're just curious and he goes to church and stuff. That's why I reached out to him. But he's like, maybe just curious, here's a Bible I recommend. So they don't publish anymore. So I bought it off eBay because it's built for fathers to kind of help their kids and stuff. Yeah, it's totally different. It's awesome. And I was reading some of it, and I started going to church, and it's been about a year and a half. So it's been that spiritual journey. So, and then relationships is another area I worked on with just podcasting alone, going to network events. I've been to masterminds. I've been to events I never would have been before if I still had my kids with me all the time and a wife at home, because I was not that person. I always want, look, I'm here. I'm here to take care of the household. I'll go to work 9 to 5 all the time, and that's who I was. But now I'm venturing out, meeting these incredible people. People I would have sat around before if I stayed at home. Some of it's through podcasting. I met a woman from Canada, was on her podcast. She was on my podcast. We met her at the Podfest down in Florida, and it was awesome. She got to meet my kids because I drug them with me, even though they didn't really care for it. Yeah. So, I mean, those were the few things. and then now it's like business and finances is my last one, and I just share like that's my way of working on my areas. Like that's not, I don't want to say that's how everybody should do it, but that's what worked for me. So it's more the mentality shift and working on my emotions first, because I felt like if I couldn't control that, how can I control anything else?
Yeah, and that's a great start. And that is a great start. And I think it's important to point out, John, that I mean, hopefully everyone's listening can tell this, but um, if we want to improve our life, if we want to improve our situation, it has to start by improving ourselves. You have to start by putting in some work. And that's not to say that, before anyone that doesn't put in that work, that they're, not a good person or anything like that. It's just that when you want to go to that next level or become, a better version of yourself, there's work that is involved, right? Whether it's your morning routine or working out or having coaches or development or reading books or listening to podcasts. I mean, any of that stuff, it's it's all going to help you in a positive way and improve who you are. And in turn, those around you will reap some of the benefits. So what have you noticed in your relationships now since you've been on that part of your journey? All these things that you're doing to work on yourself. How has it impacted your relationships, like with your kids, for example, or at work, or other ways? How has it impacted those relationships?
Yeah, so for me with work, I got a position as a supervisor. So, I look at myself as being like a leader, right? So I've been growing my leadership skills. I even took on a coach and everything to help me in that, because I don't want to be that guy that follows them, that tells them everything that they need to be doing. Like I'll do their job if they're busy doing something else, because I want them to focus. Like that's how I want it to be. So I'm trying to work on that part, with my coworkers, and with my kids. I do see them every 7 days at the moment, so it's kind of tough to have a ritual and a routine kind of going on. Things change when they're not here, so that part's kind of hard. I can only hope that whatever I can provide when they are here, or even like the phone calls and texts I can give them when they're away, that eventually they can pick up on something later on in life if they can't pick up on it now. With that being said, podcasting, the videos, YouTube, all that stuff is all over, right? So something happens to me, or maybe one day they'll wake up and they go, "Oh, let me watch what Dad's been doing." It's there, and they can tap into these people, that I was able to meet. For example, somebody is a millionaire and has his own course, and so I invested in it, and they watched one or two videos so far, and they're kind of giving me their feedback and what their thoughts are on it. Uh, so other than that, the relationships for me is the podcast. Just being it allowed me to be authentic and just be
Mhm.
who I am. And it as weird as it sounds, right? I feel like I was shut down for so long, not knowing I was shut down in a way.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's like everything I went through, kind of like here I am, like everything opens up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Let's just give this a shot and see what happens." And people people just show up for who you are, and they're the people that you're attracting, and should be attracted to you. Uh, that's what I found, and that's why you and I were able to meet. That's why I'm able to network with some other people, shifting them around with other podcasters and guests and whatnot. It's you can feel it. Like I know, I think you could agree with me. Like there's energy here just between us
Oh
virtually.
yeah,
It's
absolutely. Yeah.
not just a screen,
I feel it
right?
every time.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It took me a while to figure that part out, but it's so true. And then people are like, "Oh, I feel a connection or energy," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, me too." In an odd, weird way, virtually, yes, there
Yeah.
is something going on there. But yeah, so that's how my relationships have kind of changed. Uh, as far as like friends close by, I have one or two, maybe I would say like are friends. I don't, really go venture out. It's me and the world as a podcaster right now. That's kind of
Yeah.
what my focus is.
Yeah, and that's your focus, and then that's what's important. Do you ever think, John, that has a thought ever crossed your mind that, how would things be different if you had started this journey earlier, or if you had, really been able to be completely authentic, or, be working on yourself and doing all the things that you're doing now, if you had started that 5 years ago or 10 years ago? You ever think about that?
I can't say I have. I would say that I don't regret anything. I would say it was my path, a journey, whatever, for a reason, right? I was supposed to get here so long for whatever reason, and things had to break. I probably, I'm going to say I would most likely be at the same job if it was still there, because I was there for so long. I had the vacation pay, I had the high pay, and I knew what I was doing, so it wasn't like stressful anymore. It was comfortable, right? And that's kind
Yeah.
of like that's the seat I got. It was comfortable. Uh, that's probably where I would be. And if it wasn't for the loss of the job and the divorce and everything else, it wouldn't have opened up so many doors. It took me a while to look at it as an opportunity,
Hmm.
and I accept that now. That it is like a whole new world to me, and talking to me 3 years ago, this is not me. I would not be reaching out to people to talk to. I would not be standing up in front of people to talk to. I basically I consider myself an introvert, so I would just basically just sit by the wall waiting for somebody to come talk to me. I wouldn't
Yeah.
go approach anyone. But now when I go to the events, I listen to somebody on stage and I get up and I go ask them something because it had a spark in me. And that's what led me to other networking groups else, from that one event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all that just speaks to growth, right? It all speaks to
Yes.
growth of you, and who knows, things that you don't even imagine doing now. 3 years from now, you may be like, oh, never would have thought that I was speaking on a stage, or just whatever it is, right? That you wouldn't even envision that. I hear a lot of stories like that. So, with time will tell, and we'll be curious to see what happens. So,
Yeah, I'm curious too.
yeah, of course. So, before we wrap up here, a couple final questions that are important, for a theme of our show. And one thing we talk about, which I alluded to earlier, are those spark moments in life. And these are when our actions have a ripple effect that goes far and beyond the initial act. And so, share a story, John, that's an example, a positive story, that's an example of a spark moment in your life where either you impacted someone, or someone crossed your path that you impacted, or your path was impacted by someone that you didn't realize that was a spark moment until maybe down the road, or maybe it just happened and you know that it'll be something that's going to happen down the road.
Sure. So it's funny that you mentioned speaking because I was at an event in Nashville in March. And like I said, a woman was, this is what I was doing. A woman was on stage. She shared her journey, got off, and I wrote down whatever she said. I can't remember it, but I wrote down something she said, and it hit me like it because I went through somewhat the same part of my journey trying to figure things out. So I approached her and I'm like, look, this is what you said that got me to come talk to you. And so we had a brief discussion. We never sat down and had dinner or nothing. We had plans to chat, but we never did. Um, but that was enough to have her reach out to me like 3 months later to invite me to go down to speak for her event that's coming up in September.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so I wish I could say like this is what she said, and got me to go talk to her. I don't remember, but it was things like that have happened to me. She wasn't the only one, but it's just allowed me to make a note to take an approach to go talk to somebody I never would have spoken to before because it was something small that they said that resonated with me. So that's a one little spark that kind of lit things up. She reached out to me. Uh, we're I was at a baseball game. My daughter and my son and their mother and their uncle were seats down below me. So it wasn't like the most pleasant evening at the moment. But when I got in the parking lot and I looked at my phone and I got that invitation, it kind of like lit things up. So
Yeah,
it was a
cool.
surprise. It was a real surprise, and I was like, yeah, why not? Let's go for it.
Yeah, and that's a great example of a spark moment. Thank you for sharing, because it's one that the spark's been there. You don't know how far that ripple will go, right? And so, only time will tell to see how that ripple goes in 2 months, 3 months, 5 years, right? Of what that leads to. So thank you for sharing it.
Sure.
So, where can our audience learn more about you, connect with you, see what's going on, all of that type of stuff?
Yeah. So obviously, I have the podcast, Life's Checkmark. It's people sharing their journey in life. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, it's on YouTube. And I also, if you go to lifescheckmark.com, if you're interested, I help people start a podcast to get launched. And then I also have a podcast community going on too. So that's podcasting has been my thing. It allowed me to open up, as I shared here with you several times. And I believe it's a life changing platform medium that people should be jumping on and trying it out for themselves too. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's,
fantastic.
yeah.
Well, we'll put that in the show notes. Make sure people have the links and everything to that.
Yep.
So, one final question here, John, which we ask all our guests on the iSpark Change podcast, because our goal is to positively impact 1 billion people within the next 5 years of launching our upcoming social impact social media platform and through our community. Now, we know we can't do it alone. We know we need the help of impactful leaders like yourself to help show others the way, because many people feel, as I used to, that they're too small to make a difference, or maybe they we're just comfortable and not making a difference. So we value your thoughts and opinions as a social impact hero guest here. So I want to ask you to peer into the future, peer into the iSpark Change, crystal ball, and tell me, what can the world become if everyone starts taking that proactive action towards improving themselves?
A better place, that's for sure. Your words, man, a bigger impact. It's going to take one to help another one that can help three, that can help three more. You know what I mean? It's just going to progress from there. I don't know if you can feel it. I feel it. Things are changing, but it's slow, right?
Yeah.
You got the masculine and the feminine stuff going on, and that I feel like that's turning around a little bit. It's a slow process, but things are changing. It takes time, but I could see people getting along, more peace, more happiness, and joy in life. And why not? Why not just enjoy life instead of trying to beat everybody up and put everybody down because they might be better than you sometimes. It's hard, man, but you can change it one step at a time, and that's why you doing what you're doing here is great, trying to get the message out to the world. And I hope that you're hitting countries, and if you have books and stuff coming up, or you already have them, I hope that that's making an impact on somebody else that can say, hey, here's a book, read this, and it could change that person's life that would have never had the opportunity before, something along those lines.
Yeah, thank you. That's why I do what I do, and you do what you do, and it's like you said, it is slow, it is happening, and it's just keep plugging away, and we'll get to that world. We'll get to that world, hopefully in our lifetime. So
That's right.
Well, thank you for taking the time to share your heart and wisdom with our audience today, John. You came in and you over-delivered, as I knew you would. Your desire to understand and connect with others is evident, and you're filled with empathy, humility, and you lead with a heart of service and gratitude, which tells me you're going to continue to have success in all facets of life. And this is only the beginning of your time as a social impact hero.
Thank you. This was fun.
All right, Impact Heroes, it's our stories that connect us all, and we loved hearing John's today. John Emery, you're not only an inspiring and amazing human being, you truly are an iSpark Change social impact hero. We'll see you all next time.
Do you want Rick to speak at your event? Here's what others have to say.
Did not know his story, and it was so inspirational, and his presence on stage, his authenticity was just incredible.
Performance made me feel some type of way. My name is Craig Siegel.
If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, hire Rick. I promise you this, you will not be disappointed.
Visit rickcornelis.com to book him today.
Remember, Impact Heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.